This recording is for a small wooden storage unit, and I'm going to draw a side, a top, a side, a base and a shelf. So those are all separate components. Some of the components we're going to use twice, so that'll save some drawing time. So we're going to go new, check it's on metric, standard millimeter part, and create. Okay, now first thing we do in this, if you remember, you can either do start 2D sketch, or I can right click and do a new sketch. I'm going to just do up here for a minute. Okay, and I'm going to draw the side, so I'm going to use the side view on the XY plane, and I'm going to draw the side by clicking to select that drawing surface. Next, I'm going to use my rectangle tool up here. I'm going to click in the middle, I'm going to drag it out and press click to stop the drawing. Now I'm going on to my next tool. You'll notice that I didn't dimension that, I didn't give that any measurements. So I'm now going to go on to another tool and just dimension that object. Okay, and that object is going to be 200. So I'm just going to use the middle mouse button to scroll out. 200, so it's now become very narrow. So I'm going to choose the bottom one and drag out, and I'm going to make that one 60 and press enter. So if we have a look at our shape now, we've got a rectangle which is 60 by 200. So at the moment we've got a shape, a rectangle 600 by 200, and what I need to do now is to step in to create a joint at the top. Okay, now I'm going to draw a line which is going to be the thickness of my material, and I'm not going to worry too much about where I put it, but I am going to make sure it runs straight and it runs from the left hand side to the right hand side, joining up with those lines. I'm going to now position it again using my dimension tool. So if I click on the first line, click on the second line, click to place my dimension, and then I'm going to type in 10 because I want that to be 10 millimeters from the edge. Okay, I'm going to come down to the bottom. We'll keep this simple. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So to remind you, I'm navigating around quite easily. Middle mouse button, scroll wheel zooms in. Clicking and holding down the middle mouse button allows me to drag it. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in at the bottom. I'm going to do exactly that process again. Line tool, click, click, and then use the dimension tool, click, click, and drag, and then click to plant it. That was 10. Okay, so I've now got top and bottom, a 10 and a 10. Okay, now what I've got to do is to now trim off in the middle. So I'm going to divide my 60 into 20, 20 and 20. Right, now a couple of ways of doing this, but the easiest way is going to be to use the line tool. I'm going to click somewhere on this line and count up, and then I'm going to click somewhere on that line and click on the top. So you'll notice that none of those have got proper dimensions at the moment. If I now use my dimensioning tool, I'm going to click on the edge, click on the second line, and that means that that line is now positioned 20 millimeters in from that line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to do dimension there and there. Click on the outside line, click on the inside line, click to plant it, turn it into 20. Okay, now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the bottom. Line tool, click on that line. You'll see that the lines try and snap to each other anyway, which means that they connect sort of automatically. Then back to my dimension tool, click on the edge, click on the line, plant the dimension, 20. Click on the edge, click on the line, click to plant the dimension, and 20. Okay. Now at this point I've actually sort of finished this sketch. I'm going to try and save this, but I'm going to have to come out of my sketch first. And what it'll do is it'll allow me to use this same piece of artwork to do two different surfaces. One will be the side and one will be the top and the bottom. But the only difference will be that on one of them, I chop out this bit here, and on the other one, I chop out these two pieces so that eventually they slot back together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish that sketch. And then I'm going to go File, Save As. Make sure you know where you're saving. I'm going to save mine. I'm hoping that I've got a... No, I'm going to call this one Small Storage. I'm going to create a new folder. New folder. And I'm going to call that one Small Storage. And into that small storage folder, I'm going to call this one Sides and Top. Right, so this is the starting point. So I'm going to save that. You'll see why in a minute. That'll make much more sense. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and do some trimming to trim out my joint. Okay, so let's go back into that sketch. I come over here onto my browser, I right click and edit that sketch because it's not what I needed it to be at the moment. Right, so remember this is my sides and top artwork. I'm going to now use the trim tool, which is the scissors and the line, and I'm going to trim away that bit of line, that bit of line, and that bit of line. So what I've actually got is a continuous, it's a bit like the top of a castle, continuous bit there. Now, same thing on the bottom. Remember, we've got to get it so we've got that continuous line. So I'm going to trim that bit away, trim that bit away, and trim that bit away. Okay, so if I just zoom in, you can see here's our lines. All right. So now I'm going to finish that sketch. Now I'm going to save this one as sides. So I'm going to do another save as. Watch this. File, Save As, Sides, and Save. Right, so in my folder I've now got one which is called Sides and Top, and I've got one that I'm working on at the moment called Sides. Right, now I'm going to extrude this now. Remember with the extrude you take a two-dimensional object and you turn it into 3D. So I can either right click and go to Extrude, or I can find it up at the top. So I'm going Extrude up here. It wants to know what I want to extrude, so I hover over my shape. It automatically gives me a highlight, and actually it's the right thickness. It's 10 mil. Then I green tick it. Okay, so that's now given me the first part. This is my sides. All right, now before I go any further, I'm going to just go to my materials. So I'm going to click on the color wheel so it gives me all of my options. So that was up here. Click on that one. And I'm going to go and hunt down some wood. Yellow pine, that's going to be it, isn't it? So I'm going to put that up at the top. Make sure my model's selected and click on that again if it doesn't work. So I've now got a pine side. Close that window. So I'm going File and Save. So that updates my sides. Now watch how I'm going to use the previous one to create my top now. So I go File, Open, and I created a thing called Small Storage. I'm going to open Sides and Top. And open that. Right, so I've now got two open. There's my sides and top. So this time, instead of trimming out that middle bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off these ends, these corner boxes. Okay, so I'm going into my sketch, right click, edit sketch. So we're just repeating the process that we've done before. Trim tool, I'm going to trim that bit of the line and that bit of the line. Let's just zoom in a little bit. That bit of the line and that bit of the line. And I have to remember, I'm going to get rid of this part as well. My dimension lines have gone a little bit odd. Don't worry about it. We can ignore that. Okay, so I've now got this outside shape, and I can finish that sketch. And then I'm going to extrude 10mm green tick. Now I'm going to just do my materials again, because I think on the last bit of the video I had it slightly off the screen, so I'm going to do it over here now. Click on the button here. I'm going to drag that in so you can see what I'm doing. So this is my part. I can click on that to select it, and I'm going to then choose my material. And I think there was one down at the bottom that I found called pine, yellow pine, I think it was. Yellow pine. Put that in the top and select the object and close that browser. Right, so there's my top. So I'm now going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call this one Top. So if you think about what we've got a sides, which has got the gap in it. We've got the top, which has got the little peg sticking out of the either end of it. So what I can do is to assemble those as a simple shape. Okay, but you remember how I got it off the original part? Let me just open up sides and top. If I go open sides and top, you'll see I've still got that source document if I needed to use it again. I've now got 3 parts. Let's close that. Right, got the sides, got the top, made, job done. So let's now go File, New, and we're going to put those together. File, New, and then we're going to do that as an assembly. Okay, which is this section here. And again, we're going to choose standard millimeter. IAM stands for Inventor Assembly, and we'll do that in our next video.